The dog bites the rope and creeps across the cold ice. Then the dog puts the rope around the doctor's neck. Then the dog runs back quickly. At the command of their master, Jerry, all the dogs work together. They managed to pull the doctor out of the freezing river. The doctor was saved, but he had frostbite all over his body. They had to get back to camp as soon as possible. Jerry strapped the doctor to the sleigh and wrapped him up. Then he orders the dogs to make a dash for the camp. But then the blizzard hit, and Jerry's strength is exhausted by the cold. He slumped on the sled. When Maya, the leader of the dogs, saw him, she led the pack in a desperate run. They eventually made it back to camp. After diagnosis, the doctor is in critical condition and needs to be taken to the hospital as soon as possible. And Jerry's fingers are black with cold. If not treated in time, he could be amputated, but the plane was too small. They had to leave the dogs in the frigid Antarctic. They tied the dogs up with chains. Jerry promised Maya they'd be back for them. But when the plane took off, the dogs realized they had been abandoned by their owners. They barked at the plane. Maya, on the other hand, watched the plane in silence. She was convinced that her master would not abandon them. 3 days later, Jerry woke up in his hospital bed. He immediately asked if the dog had been picked up. To his surprise, his teammates told him that the expedition had been cancelled. The earliest he could return to the South Pole would be next spring. Then Jerry went to the command center and asked to go back. But the commander said there was a blizzard in the Antarctic. They couldn't go back. At this point, 8 dogs are still waiting for their owners to return. As the wind and snow grow heavier, they couldn't stand the cold any longer. So the dogs broke free of their chains. But they didn't run away. They waited in the snow for 15 days. By this time, they were very hungry. Suddenly, a seabird flew into the camp. One of the dogs saw it and rushed out. The other dogs followed in pursuit. Only the oldest dog stayed behind. He couldn't run anymore. Maya wanted to bite the chain for him, but he refused. She didn't want to slow the pack down. Maya understood the dog. She licked his head. It was like a final goodbye. Maya then left the dog behind and left the camp alone. These dogs had been abandoned by their owners in the snow for over 20 days. At this point, they're very hungry. Suddenly, they see a flock of seabirds gathering on the hillside, but an excited Max barks at the flock. Frightened, the seabirds scatter in all directions. Luckily, the flock didn't get very far and landed a short distance away. Clever Maya then gave the order to catch them. The dogs immediately followed the plan. Maya then crept closer to the flock. Then she barked at the flock. She quickly dashed towards the flock. The birds took off immediately. The other dogs came out from the other side. They surrounded the flock. Eventually, they managed to catch a few seabirds, but they didn't eat them right away. They brought them all to Maya and waited for the chief to distribute them. The Air Max doesn't get a share of the food. He got down on his back and begged the others to give him some, but he was cruelly denied. Max had no choice but to come to the white dog and eat with him. Before they know it, they've survived 50 days in Antarctica. They saw the aurora borealis. They run after the aurora borealis with great excitement. But suddenly, one of the dogs, Dewey, falls off a cliff. The other dogs rush down the cliff to look for Dewey. Dewey was lying motionless on the ground. The other dogs rushed down to keep him warm, but suddenly the storm returned. They all lay down on the ground to escape the cold. Overnight, they were covered in a thick blanket of snow. They came out of the snow. Maya stayed with the wounded Dewey, but Dewey never woke up. The other dogs came up and licked Dewey's face. They were saying their final goodbyes. They left the scene, but Max stayed by Dewey's side. Then the dogs find a supply depot. Inside, they find some food. They finally get a full meal. Maya sits in front of the door. She's worried about Max, who's been separated. At that moment, Max came to a lake. He saw the body of a whale, and as he approached the whale, Max was terrified and didn't know what to do. Suddenly, dogs barked from the hills. It turns out that Maya has found this place with her pack. They managed to chase off the seal. The dogs had been starving for 10 days and were eating the carcass of a whale. Suddenly, a seal comes out and bites Maya's leg. Max jumps on the poster and starts biting. When the other dogs saw this, they rushed to attack the seal. Eventually, they managed to chase the seal away, and Maya's leg is badly injured. She lay down helplessly. The other dogs lay down beside her, so Max took over the hunting duties. He brought the seabird to Maya, hoping that Maya would be able to pull herself together. They waited for their master to come and take them home, and the dog's owner, Jerry, has been trying everything to get back to the South Pole, but all of them were rejected. But when the doctor saw his son's drawings, he was touched by his son's drawings. He realized that his life had been saved by these dogs. So he found Jerry. They decided to go back to Antarctica to save the dogs. They came to the camp. Jerry came to the chains. He found a dead dog. Jerry felt very guilty. Then Jerry followed the chain. Suddenly he found a broken collar. Jerry pulled the chain out of the snow.
They got loose!
And then the dog heard the camp moving and came running with his companion. After 180 days, they finally found their owners. Then Jerry started counting the dogs, but Maya and Dewey were missing. Jerry looked to the far side of the hill with anticipation, but Maya and Dewey were never seen again. Saddened, Jerry took his dog and was ready to leave, but Max couldn't stop barking. He ran up the hill. Jerry followed him. He eventually found Maya lying on the ground. Jerry crouched down beside Maya, leaving tears of sadness. Suddenly, Maya's eyes blinked. When Jerry reached out and touched it, Maya woke up. Finally, Jerry left the place with Maya in his arms.